Welcome to Veterans Connected, where maintenance and reliability expert and military veteran Eric Bevevino connects with fellow veterans in industry during each episode, where they exchange their experiences and discuss the transition from the military to industry and the paths and resources that led them to where they are today. The Veterans Connected podcast is proudly produced by the industry's leading network and learning community, Mobius Connect. Eric, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eric Bevevino, host of the Mobius Connect podcast, focused on connecting military veterans to the maintenance and reliability community. Our aim here is to bridge the understanding gap between the military and civilian worlds, thereby improving the veteran transition journey and ultimately providing hope and a helping hand to any of our brothers and sisters out there struggling to find their way. We'll do this by interviewing veterans who have successfully made it through. For this session, we've chosen to interview one such Army veteran for the second time, Tim Harmon, whose fascinating patriotic story is a must listen for anyone interested in joining us on this mission. Hey, Tim, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Eric, it's good to see you again. How are you?
Likewise, I'm good, man. Good. When we had this first interview, the inaugural interview, which was in February of 22, so maybe 18 months, 17 months back, right in the rearview mirror. You and I had not met in person before. We since met in person at one of the Mobius events, which was great. And I heard your story live at that event, which was fantastic as well. And we met with some of the other veterans that have been on the podcast so far. So we thought it was appropriate to begin season 2. This is really season 2 of the Veterans Connected podcast. Who knew that it'd be the 21st episode? I think that's great. And you started off in a wonderful fashion. So what better way to do this season 2 than with you, Tim? So where you been over the last year? What have you been up to?
First off, let me tell you, first of all, I just want to say this whole thing's been, a blessing in disguise, right? So, the fact that this, I remember when it was just a thought when we first started talking, actually in 2021, and the fact that it became a reality in 2022 is just, incredible. And the amount of people that have embraced it from the veteran side along the way has been astounding. So, actually, I got a lot out of listening to everybody's story. Not only that, but like all the different avenues that are available, from listening to Ken, who we met at the Mobius, Ken Hurst, and his parachuting over France and so on, and then all the way down to just the conglomerate. I mean, the Bobby Allens and the stuff, the different branches, the different experiences, and the way that those have really just drawn people into this reliability maintenance / organizations around the United States, but all the different positions that people have that are really making reliability in the United States a reality and giving that momentum, So I thought it was fascinating, and the fact that we had that you've just been able to get that kind of love behind it is impressive. So congratulations and
thanks, brother. Yeah. I mean, it was Mr. Todd White that got us together, right? Yeah. Originally, and just talking about, hey, there seems to be a need, and you in a consulting job, really. I mean, you get to meet a lot more people on a daily basis than I do in my current job, even though I'm in a sales and a customer facing role. I'm in a manager role, so I've got a couple teams that are doing most of the customer facing for me day to day. So are you hearing from other folks that they're enjoying kind of what we're laying down here, or that they're aware of it without prompting? Okay, good. Well, that's exciting.
I think even outside of the typical military life, right? So I'm actually hearing, friends of mine, people that I'm connected with, just not necessarily even people that aren't subscribed to it, but see it come across on the wire from my own page. I think they find that there's I think what the key is they like the fact that there's this segue into this real application on the backside of the podcast. When you start talking about, hey, what are you doing in this past historical experiences into this application for today. But really, I think people also get a kick out of just realizing that there's still guys walking and ladies walking around here that have done this stuff. You know what I mean? And they're out here and they're making it happen out here. And I think it's a profound message that experience does mean something, and that it is useful, and there is a place and there is value in that. And there's a true testament to over 18 months of all these podcasts that are demonstrating just that,
Right on. I mean, I watched The Covenant on the plane ride recently, and thought, before the podcast, likely would not have known a person that I could actually put into that framework. But now that I know you, I could put you into the framework after learning your story. I mean, I think at the end of the day, everybody's got a story, right? Everybody's got a story, and we know our coworkers and our acquaintances probably to a surface level, unless, we really sit down and have some good, meaningful conversations, perhaps over an adult beverage of bourbon, or soda or whatever. And there's a lot of depth to everybody that's out there, and the veterans that are out there have a unique story like everybody else, but it may be a little more diverse. But there are other people who go out and do challenging things in different countries and have other experiences. I think it's a nice testament. I mean, we have had one Coast Guardsman, we've had one lady on the podcast, so we need more. The only service not represented is the Marines so far, but I have some ideas there.
I got a guy for you. I got a guy for you.
I got a guy.
30-year sergeant major, retired sergeant major, so we can get him in there for sure.
Well, fantastic. We'll bring it on. And we've been over some miles, I guess. Your organization has been purchased by a larger organization. My organization has been purchased by a larger organization.
Okay.
So, we're going through another transition here, not only the transition from military life to civilian life, but a transition for me from a medium-sized company to a very large company, because Valvoline Global Operations, the business-to-business side of the organization and the manufacturing, was purchased by Saudi Aramco.
Okay.
And Allied Reliability is, I can see your board. The people listening to the podcast can't see it, but I see your whiteboard behind you, and I see Shell up in the upper left-hand corner. So, so Shell has purchased. How's that transition been? Has it been kind of like a transition from the military into the civilian world, but a little easier than that?
I think there's a little bit. Obviously any kind of change delivers another level of complexity, right? And first I want to just take a step back and say that the fact that we are that military people are so versatile, because things are always very fluid in the military, changing and stuff like that, that there's that the adaptability to another level of complexity probably is a beacon of hope for a lot of people, that the transition can happen, right? Not saying without any kind of degradation or whatever, but the stature of which people have coming out of the military, of just understanding how things work, and that dynamic allows them to assimilate into a different paradigm relatively easy. But what I would tell you is us at the Allied Group, who was purchased by the Shell Lubricants Group, fascinating times. I mean, it's interesting. It's a different group of people. It's they had a different mission, and I really like the idea of what they were doing is trying to accommodate customers' needs by bringing in a level of service, not just lubricants, but the service that goes around with, hey, we get it, you're the blood in the machines, but now let's bring in the subject matter expertise that can figure out the rest of the strategy, right? So that was pretty smart on their part. What I do like about it is that they're continuing to run Allied as with some autonomy, right? So it's an independent subsidy of Shell. So we're still doing a lot of work outside. Really haven't really started to assimilate with them into the safety paradigm, but really, as far as the cultural dynamic within the company, is still maintaining its continuity as it was before, which is really nice, right? But
Yeah. Well,
things could
and
still
I,
change, right?
yeah, as you might imagine, I've worked for Chevron in the past, and there was a reliability. Obviously, in any sort of refining or process-oriented industry, there's a lot of reliability focus. It doesn't always extend to the other parts of the business,
Right.
but when I was there, it did, and that's what got me interested in maintenance and reliability, and that got led me to MRG, and then
Yeah.
MRG went to Emerson and all that. So I think there's a nice match there. In what really dawned on me once I got into maintenance and reliability, that there are multiple components to it. It sort of brought me back to shipboard life. Like, there are so
Yeah.
many components in the system, and lubricants are a key part of it, but not the whole thing. Right? Lifeblood,
No.
like you said, lifeblood, but a lot of other things are very important in the world of maintenance and reliability, and those things, most of which I learned in the service, and I suspect you learned in the service too, on the
Yeah.
process orientation to preventive maintenance, and really having your gear ready to go when the proverbial stuff hits the fan, and let's saddle up and get going. But yeah, good stuff. Well,
Yeah, no,
that's
we
exciting.
did a
Yeah,
lot
I
of that too.
mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, go
No,
ahead.
I was saying we did a lot of that too, as well as it's just interesting. You talk about when it hits, you got to be ready, and I enjoyed that part of it, and I think there's a level of fun that happens even when you're overseas. I did my tours in Afghanistan and so on, but like you're outside the wire for 3 weeks at a shot, but there is this calming moment, or I would say like this moment of embracing each other, and you know what it usually happens over? Weapons cleaning, right?
Ah,
You go clean
nice.
your weapon so you're ready for the next one, but it's really a bunch of Joes sitting around, talking and just hashing out old stories and story time while you're making sure you're doing good functions checks and cleans, and you get all the stuff out of there that's going to stop a weapon from jamming. And yeah, it's pretty interesting when you think about it like that, because I probably know a lot more about a lot of guys out there just from weapons cleaning sessions.
No, that's a good example, right? You're focused on something else, something that's mechanical, right? Something that takes some attention. So, I mean, it's not super complicated, but it's complicated enough that you got to put the springs in the back the right way. You got to have everything
Yeah.
clean. You got to pay attention to detail. So, you can maybe let your mind wander a little bit in the
Mhm.
conversation, and your guards down. Perhaps you
Yeah.
started out with a moment of calm, right?
Yeah.
That's how you characterize a moment of calm. So, okay, this is something that we can control.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In a
Yeah.
world, in a VUCA environment that
Yeah.
we can't control much,
Yeah.
this is something we
Exactly.
can control. It makes us comfortable.
The,
I
the other 11
appreciate
hours
that.
might be chaos, but at least you have that moment there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
without a doubt. Without a doubt. So, Tim, based on our interview last time, which was very content rich and very interesting, I recommend anybody listening to this go back and listen to the first part of the story as well, where you covered your youth, your upbringing, your in the service. You went to Bosnia, and you came back, and you went to Arizona and college, and got into farming, got in the National Guard, and went to Afghanistan, and then you came back. Anything that we didn't cover that you thought about afterwards that said, man, I wish I would have told this story, or we would have talked about it? I mean, you've been in so many industries, right? You've been in the Army for sure, and then you've been in pharma,
Mhm.
tire, and if I miss any of these, and did you go into food? Oh, you
Steel. Yeah.
steel, yeah, steel manufacturing after that. Anything? What else did I miss there?
No, and I think I was in double dabbled in paper a little bit, but
Oh, paper.
it's
Okay, pulp and paper. Yep.
yeah. So you know, I don't. I mean, the stories are so long, and the things that we learn are probably more than you could probably, this is to your point, sit down over a nice adult beverage, but clear your calendar. We got some time to talk, So I think what has been the real thing is as I continue to move forward. So those experiences help lay down foundational things and then help me to continue to learn along the way, but also have enough people that are pointing me into additional things. Like, for example, I never knew really about Mobius, and I take that as an example, as they're doing all this great things for us. I would like to use them as an example, but I didn't know all the opportunities that Mobius offered, right? Until I started talking more, and we were with Allied and the partnerships with Allied and so on like that, that you realize that there's other things out there. And so it's that those foundational things, allowing people to continue to, let you build off of those foundations. And then I think when you have a passion for it, like we do, of maintenance and reliability, and I think there's a huge sense of accomplishment when you can really derive that fruition. And I mean it, and I, not to get too technical or outside the lanes here, but hey man, when somebody comes back and says your availability is up, or profit margins are doing great, or these things that when you hear it for the first time, you look at your buddy and go like, is that good or bad, right? And then they start putting all the green things up there and wanting to buy the team pizza and all that stuff, to show appreciation. You start to learn these things, and there's a sense of reward, a sense of ownership in that space, which I think has been great. And it's a catalyst to continue to want to learn more, but not necessarily in the same setting, but through educational type things like the ARPA or the ARP, which is the asset reliability professional classes that are offered, or getting your CMRP through SMRP or whatever the case may be. But those are the things that you begin to seek out, right? So you're dealing with your day-to-day stuff, and I still deal with it today I've since moved into a solutions delivery manager. So I have multiple projects across, a wide spectrum, a wide network. I mean, we got one that's going on right now off on a platform off the coast of Australia, but we do a lot of stuff remote, but as you see these things getting into oil and gas, getting into, lumber, when you get into pharmaceuticals, there's these niche things that present themselves that go, man, what is the best practice? What is it? One of the common things I hear a lot from everybody is, so I want you to compare me against industry standards. Well, I don't know what all of those are, but it allows you that opportunity to go seek it out. And that's the knowledge base you get. The opportunity to learn has been fascinating, even after 20 years in reliability. It's just every day presents a new opportunity.
Well, and lifelong learning, right? So it all starts with a conversation and a curious mind and a desire. Maybe the backbone of business, a certain type of business or a certain type of manufacturing is similar, right? But there's that 5 to 10% that's going to be different, and it's important.
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't learn about it, then you're not going to be able to provide the best advice, guidance, or even operate within that system. So I think that, that's something that whether you're perhaps born with it or it's latent until you get to an organization like the U.S. military that promotes lifelong learning and consistent advancement. I'm not sure which one it is, but I know for sure that the military does provide that path and that expectation to always be learning and always be growing. And that's not common in corporate America for sure. I don't know if it's common in the public sector. I haven't really worked in the public sector that much, whether it's government or municipality, but I suspect there are a fair bit of veterans in the public sector because you can use your time and in some cases and move along. But that lifelong learning is definitely something that's within most veterans. And one thing that you also said on on the last time we were together was that most veterans are like us and good people, but not everybody's an all-star, right? Not everybody's an all-star. Don't get a resume and it says, U.S. Army or U.S. Navy veteran. Say, oh, I got somebody just like Tim and Eric or anybody else on these podcasts. You guys still have to do diligence. I mean,
sure.
I know very closely some people that manage other teams that have not had a similar experience, but by and large, you know what to look for, and you know what you're getting. But yeah.
Well, and to your point, I mean, it's a cover letter, right? But and there is a predisposition notion that goes along with the fact that you've served your country, and that doesn't and I would never take that away from anybody up front. But yeah, you still got to do due diligence in your homework to say, like the military is very diversified, and there's no telling what that person did in the military, but that doesn't always mean that person's right for the job that you're looking for in the private sector. So they probably all have a place. May not be that specific place, but they all have a place,
Right on. And I think the military is also, I think it's the most diverse organization that I've ever been a part of. And this race, religion, any differences that people may have tend to evaporate when you're all working towards the same goal, right? And hopefully a lot of us come without any sort of baggage in that direction in the first place, right? But but if anybody does, I think they can quickly learn to get past it. And don't believe everything you see or hear on the news these days about the military being full of this type of person.
No. Yeah. And it's like everything else. It's not the same organization we belong to, and it's but it's no different than how everything is working in the world, and that's where you got to find your place. You know what I mean? It's important to understand, where you fit in and what jives with you, because you can be the best at that, but if you're not in tune with where you're at, it's probably just not going to work in your benefit all the way around, right? But to your point,
it has to be a fit, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Looking for mentors and guidance, though you had sort of a hierarchical mentorship system within the military. I mean, most organizations have a hierarchical system as well, but it's not against the rules to go outside of the chain of command. I know that's something that I struggle with even today. It's not against the rules typically in most organizations to seek out mentors from other areas. That's why you see the advent of, I believe that's why we see the advent of these employee resource groups. Like we're starting a veterans employee resource group at Valvoline, and we have a very strong international women's group within Valvoline and other affinity groups as well. And it's pretty cool. It's like almost the heartbeat of the organization. Like you go in, you go out, you see the building, you see your coworkers and stuff like that. And I think America needs to feel that heartbeat of community again, to realize that our differences aren't that great and that we all kind of want the same thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's definitely critical for the fabric as we move forward right now, especially with the fast-paced changes of the current situation, economy, manufacturing, switching to the green energy, all these types of things are changing the platforms, of the different manufacturing environments, and that's required for us to do it too. I think this is a great spot to put in that, when we talk about seeking the education, when we talk about embracing different ideas or understanding those different ideas and how they're being leveraged, it's important to stay abreast of those things because of how things are changing. And what I mean by that is, when you talk about digital 4.0, when you talk about going into condition monitoring, when you talk about eliminating a human footprint, when you talk about digital twin, when you talk about these things that are really trying to move off of human intervention, time-based acquisitions, but moving more to that predictive culture to move yourself more into a proactive model. These are where it's going. And so I think if I had anything to say to our teams out there, especially wanting to get into maintenance and reliability, is, think about diagnostics, think about, this AI stuff that's coming up, machine behaviors and stuff like that, because to your point, it's not only the human side of the community relevance and the changing fabric, but it's dynamically doing the same thing in the manufacturing platforms as well. And so as these things evolve, there's going to be a different thing that people are seeking. And that is, your knowledge might have to switch from understanding, how to go out there and understand torque specifications or ISO standards for parts per million and lubrication, but more around, what's this blip in this AI trending, or how do I use this dog to do static, evaluations on pipelines. Those are really where, functionally and people are willing to invest in it. And that's the next level that we're trying to get to at that point, So it's a twofold piece, right? So it's the human aspect. It's taking that human aspect from that community aspect and bringing it into the workplace. So while you have that community aspect conglomerating in the workplace, but it's assimilating it into the rest of the workplace and how that particular place functions, So it's tying those dots together.
Yeah, very interesting point. I think at the end of the day that we are in a rapidly changing environment, and there's anxiety induced by that rapidly changing environment. AI, like, what is AI? If you watch a movie that's focused on AI becoming sentient, right? Or something like that. Probably not there yet, but I mean, my wife uses Chat GPT all the time to create a letter or a communication that has certain sensitivities or focus or anything like that. So this is coming, and it won't be the traditional education of the past or the way of thinking. It'll be thinking how to think and to think about how to interact. Are you seeing a lot of AI being introduced in maintenance and reliability
we are, especially not just, it's coming, and people are experimenting with it right now. So there's a lot of companies that use different platform AIs to not only for process control and performance, but as well as, really registering machine behavior. And that comes down to a motor, that comes down to a pump, you don't want to, and when you talk about the financial impacts for that, while there is probably a level of effort that comes out of the checkbook to get it in place, understanding it and optimizing the knowledge base of how that pump works, that mitigates tons of risk for unnecessary spend or resource time allocation. And it also takes away from that time-based route preventive maintenance inspections we did, right? So now you move from a preventive maintenance to a predictive maintenance and then do on condition repairs, as opposed to getting so close to the critical failure. And I would challenge everybody here, you can look it up online, but just look at the IP to F curve, right? That as vibrations way up on that P to F curve. This AI is taking it just another step, but it's taking out all of the false positives in there that are sending people chasing things, because it's learning that this is a normality as opposed to an instance, right? So Yeah, a lot of companies are using that to, and to be honest, to be a completely transparent, is I think there's also a very large shortage of people, and a very large shortage of people who potentially want to do this kind of work. So you have to look for alternatives, to continue to keep the eye and keep it going.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think from experience and recent memory, like disparate systems that they're created in the electric vehicle space reminds me of this more because it's so fragmented at this point in time. I mean, lots of component manufacturers, and that'll end up consolidating and congealing, as it goes. But some of these trade shows you go to, like the Advanced Clean Technology Exposition, you see, people are doing wheels, they're doing batteries, they're doing engines. Some are doing the entire vehicle, some are doing drones, some are doing this, some are doing that, right? And it's all over the place, including big, Class 8 trucks and other types of machines. So I think it's cool that efficiencies can be gained through predictive analytics and using the disparate systems, whether it's remote vibration monitoring, infrared analysis, oil analysis. I think oil analysis still needs to get sucked into that program a little bit more. Perhaps we're getting closer to that. I haven't seen maybe an industrial lubrication that's better than fleet lubrication, because the fleets are a little bit further behind, but they're catching up. They're catching up, and the telemetry and whatnot are getting better. But that's really interesting. And at the end of the day, kids going into computer science may have to learn some trade type of items as well, because now it's, it seems like this middle portion. Okay, there's the programming, there's the understanding and directing the computer to do what it needs, but when something bad happens, the computer's not going to reach in there with two hands and take the bolts off and put it back together. Right?
That's what I think. And so just for, to be completely clear, like there's always going to be a need for people regardless. Computer's not going to reach in there and do that. But just because there's all this technology, there's also a cost benefit analysis that's still being done. And you're not going to go put a $5,000 IR camera into every single MCC cabinet you have in a plant, right? You still got somebody walking around with a nice FLIR camera and doing the stuff because it's just cost effective. But that's where I think it's still, a huge thing, to your point about the trade side, is getting that Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3 certifications in technology, because it still is on condition repairs. And that's really where that reliability state comes in. You get into reliability state, it's because that guy's out there with the IR camera or the UE gun or whatever the case may be that, allows that predictive technology to be utilized for that reliability strategy overall. And so you're still going to need people. We are definitely not hands off by any stretch of the means anytime soon. So, but to your point, even those people that are going to school to learn some very technical skills, I think at some point there's going to have to be that, it wouldn't be surprising, totally off the cuff, and I'm just thinking of it right now, but as the future progresses, you could be getting a degree in computer science and then also learning UE technology at the same time, right? So there's a skill and a profession. So it's pretty interesting thought, actually, when you think about it from that perspective.
Yeah, and it takes us full circle back to military veterans, right? So I mean, for me, I'm mechanically inclined, right? So I think this is cool, right? You're a small team of people that know maintenance and reliability. Not only can they work with the intelligence or the systems to figure out when something's breaking or the machine is feeling down, right? They can also go out and fix it. Perhaps underappreciated, but maintenance can be a cost center, considered a cost center, profit center in the whole program by eliminating failures before they happen. And there's so much focus on other things that can leave a gap in the space, right? So you can occupy the space, you get leadership challenges, leadership opportunities, expansion knowledge opportunities, instead of like, hey, I've been told I need to go get an MBA in this or a PhD in this or whatever, finance, business, blah, blah, blah. And that's all fine for, if that's your deal, right? But I would encourage people to use some of the, like, the newer, well, I don't know if they're newer, but some of the things that are newer to me, some of the personality tests, the interest tests. I just finished the book by Patrick Lencioni. Sorry, Patrick Lencioni. Yeah, I can't even say it right. Lencioni. We can edit that later if we want to. You wouldn't even know I'm Italian, right? I can't even say Lencioni from the Table Group. And he crafted these fables about the 5 dysfunctions of a team, and then more recently, Hungry, Humble, and Smart, like the ideal team player. And this one was about the 6 geniuses, of work, and what really what makes you happy when you're working. I mean, these are the 6 components, and he's got a nice little acronym for it, but people can go in and take an online test. Okay, it costs $25, or maybe you can get your company to work for it, but you are the master of your own destiny. It's nice to have people looking out for you. It's great to have mentors, but be okay with not having anybody looking out for you, and not having a mentor, and being your own mentor and own master of your destiny, because sometimes you're going to find yourself without that air cover specifically. And you need to be your own best friend at that point, right?
Yeah. And to your point, I think that leads back to our military brothers and sisters, right? So one of the things is we talk about the reliability space, especially with the military people coming out. And I think it's as you step out and you change over and you make that transition from that highly regimented, structured environment into a more loosely led life. And it was tough for me, because I think, I'm not sure if I said this last time, but one of the hardest things that I took on when I switched over was the military always expected excellence, right? I mean, and I mean that in the most purest form. Like, here I am in primary leadership development course, going into just taking the leadership training to be a sergeant, and we didn't wax the cleaning closet floor clean enough, right? That, because it's excellence. Anything's less than excellence, even though it probably would have been excellent. But that demeanor of you can never be perfect always makes you strive for perfection, right? Because we all inherently want to be the best at what we do. Now, what I struggled with is striving for perfection in a world that often mediocrity is perfection. You know what I mean? So what I would tell our brothers and sisters in the transition coming into the reliability world is, don't ever change your mentality to strive for perfection, because that is what sets you apart from the rest of where you're at. And they hired us because of that trait. It takes it to another level. The other thing I would say is that you don't have to have a PhD to be in reliability or maintenance. You don't have to have a master's or a bachelor's. You don't even have to have a 2-year technical degree. It really is about a desire to learn, a lot of work to educate yourself, seize all the opportunities, and more importantly, listen. Just genuinely listen to the people out there to gain the experiences, or to listen to those things to understand that tribal knowledge that comes along with it. So it's, to me, it's its own coursework and its own dynamic, because it really is a 50-50 of embracing the engagement at the shop floor level with those people who have 30 years of tribal knowledge experience, understand the right way to fix that machine, then going and studying what precision maintenance means, and then coming back and looking and understanding if we would have repaired this differently, it would have lasted longer. And then educating yourself through the books and the courses that show you how to do that. So I want to tell everybody here that don't run out and think you need a 4-year mechanical engineering degree to go be a great reliability engineer. You need to have the desire, go out there and learn from the books and the classes from Mobius and, other organizations, but also go get the books like you're talking about that, talk about, usually keep one in the office here, but I have one, for making
leadership,
common practice, right?
Yeah,
all
management,
right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Or Rajesh Gulati's book, about maintenance and reliability. I know that's kind of like, but pick it up. It may be a little dry, but if you have that passion, and I would challenge people that if you start reading something like that and it interests you, you're in the right place.
Right on. It's intuitive, right?
Yeah. But if you pick that up and go, man, this is just not what I thought it was about. I would take that as a precursor that maybe you should really consider something else, right? Because there are those moments of dryness where you're studying 43,000 lines of data to try to find that bad actor, and that may not be your bag of tea. But I just want people to not run away and think that, oh man, I'm getting out of service and I got to spend 4 years of college to get an engineering degree to go do this. I want them to understand that everything you've done to this point has value. And if you have that passion, man, and you're going to probably supersede a lot of stuff faster than you would by trying to spend all that time, because it's going to put you 4 more years or 5 more years behind when you're missing out on all that key knowledge. You know what I mean? So when you embrace what you learned in the military and you bring it out there with understanding not to scale back from your drive to excellence, and you drive in there and start looking for those courses and those people that can help you, it's fantastic, man. And the world is at your feet. Out there, you can do anything at that point.
So I think and I think folks, whether they're veterans transitioning or people in general, are looking for the voice of confidence and strength. Like, it comes through with you. Hopefully it comes through with me as well. And what I see, or what I've heard, not only in the podcasts, but also I'm in a master's program that I'm going through, American Military University, part of APUS, which I would highly recommend because it's very flexible and good. But I'm in there with a lot of younger folks, right? Some people who are already in the final phases of their military career before they transition to whatever's next, whether it be civilian and reserves or whatever, and people that have been out for a while. But what amazes me in the introduction phase of every one of these classes, you give a little bio, right? What are you doing? For the folks coming out of the military are so used to be tasked with so many different things. They come out, they've got a young family, they're starting a business, they're getting a master's degree, they're working a job, they're like doing all this stuff at the same time. I'm like, whoa, brother, you're like way overachieving here. I mean, not that you want to get sucked into the vortex of mediocrity, but there's a balance, right? There's got to be a balance. And I think it's a symptom of not really knowing like where to go and what to do. And you're poking at this a little bit. If you get into corporate America, you get in a job, if there's a suction sound towards mediocrity and all that, I mean, you got to deal with that if you want to deal with it, but you can still have your own. I want to be a better person today than I was yesterday, and tomorrow than I was today. And you can keep doing that, and you can keep learning on your own, even if the place that you're at, is not demanding a higher level of excellence. But that can, if you have a level of excellence expectation, and the pool that you're swimming in is just pulling you under all the time, you got to be really careful of that, because that can have long-term repercussions in mental health and other stuff, right? So
you don't want to go swimming with cement shoes on, for sure,
right?
But you also don't want to forget where you came from, And that's important. So to your point, absolutely, there's a balance, right? And you don't want to take on too much, but whatever. So to your, I don't have to take on 100 things, but the 5 things I do choose to take on, I'm going to do the best I possibly can.
Without a doubt, I think maintenance and reliability, whether it's in a manufacturing facility, whether it's in a truck fleet, hell, the trades are suffering, right? If you want to be your own business owner, go be a handyman. If you show up on time, you're nice to people, and you can fix some stuff, you can run your own business, right? And I know that's dumbing it down a little bit from the skill sets in the military, but don't let anybody tell you that you're not qualified to do anything in the civilian world. How you could go, a lot of these folks are coming out really competent in electricity, plumbing, mechanical, all sorts of other things, right? That they learned in the military, that they can do their own businesses. Hell, I know, a guy who used to be in Navy Special Forces running a gun shop not too far from here, and does a successful business, and is a great guy. So
that's the limit.
Yeah. So Tim, I touched a little bit on mental health. You mentioned when we talked, if you're comfortable with it, talking about equine therapy and any experiences that you had there, because there may be people, whether they're veterans or not, or they have family members that are suffering from anxiety. It seems like something very interesting. And what do you know about that stuff?
So actually, I think equine therapy is I was very fascinated by the whole thing. I'm not only a person who's proponent of it, but I did go through one of their retreats from Hooves, which is a healing of our veteran equine services. And they're based out of White House, Ohio. It's actually it was actually enlightening to me, because I didn't realize just how powerful horses are, and that they actually have a whole sensory piece to them that looks inside you that you don't even look inside you, So it's almost interesting how they act out how you feel. It's kind of weird. But they've done they've been around for several years now, and I think what the great part about it is it's actually ran by somebody who is still in the Air Guard. So also been on a list of a lot of influential people in helping those organizations, but and they help a lot of first responders too. So but I think when I went through it, and I would offer to you that a lot of times it's easy to go to things like that with a closed mind. And actually, if you get to that point, then it all seems really hokey, right? That's a horse. I'm a human being, and how could a horse possibly understand how I feel? But I was probably the same way. I just didn't. It was a shot in the dark, right? But I would say if you are feeling not well, and if you do have any kind of issues, and you really are susceptible, I would love for you to reach out to Hooves. They have wide open arms. They're all about really keeping it, and it's not like they're going to sprinkle some dust on you and it's all gone, but really talking about the tools to manage those catastrophic things that we went through that changed the way we think overseas, or anything for that matter in your life. I know they do a lot of first responders too that see a lot of horrific things too. So, but they have a retreat up there. I just tell you a little bit about it. So when I went through, it was kind of stayed at a different place, and since then they've gotten bigger. So more horses, more stables. So you actually go there. They have a nice facility, and they have bunks and rooms and stuff. So they try to keep everybody, together. Obviously,
right.
And in an effort to help everybody kind of engage, and believe it or not, you'll realize that while the occurrences are very different, the reason you're there is very much the same. And you will make a lot of friendships, but they have a platform that's quiet. It's out in the woods, and you really get to spend quality time. going through some very good workshops every night. Tend to, have some music and just us people to socialize and talk to around a bonfire. And they've made the environment very welcoming. Tons and tons of volunteers. A lot of them have gone through workshops and became a volunteer. A lot of them are veterans as well that went through that and want to help their fellow veterans and first responders. And so they have a web page, they have a Facebook page, but an absolute amazing spot.
Yeah, maybe as a follow on, if you have any contacts there that you worked with, I mean, we could certainly just reach out to the website and find the ownership and get somebody on the podcast. But I think as we segue into season 2, we'll continue to talk to veterans who have made it through. But there's other branches of this. I think. I mean, we talked to Dan Jarvis from 22-0 on one of these podcasts. As well as Chris Pepin, who's, working in, some volunteer status and doing things for veterans. So these volunteer organizations, whether it's mental health or transition or whatever, I think it's perhaps beneficial to give them some airtime here as well as in their experiences, because they're seeing transition stuff at the same time, oftentimes are veterans and could be helpful, as well as the employee resource groups. I've met some pretty interesting people who are running these groups for different companies, and different companies take different approaches, but the ones who are really into it do quite a nice job. So yeah, that might be a good segue. So thanks for sharing on that, Tim. We appreciate it, and we'll look for getting somebody from Hooves onto the podcast so we can talk to them.
Yeah, for sure. And they have a lot of information and stuff there to dovetail on. I know a lot of the retreats and stuff are going on like that. I would also tell you that since we've talked last, we have a cattle farm, and down here in Mississippi, we've offered that some of our land.
Oh, you do? You have a cattle farm?
I do, yeah, beef cattle farm down here. Well, and the reason being is because me being also diagnosed with PTSD, that is how I go and actually do a lot of things that are low stress and just kind of easy for me to break away from the monotony and the hustle and bustle of the real world, right? So
for sure,
but we've offered up our property, some of the areas down here, so that they could do, some of the hosts could come down here and do a traveling show if they wanted to for veterans of this local area. Also, I want to say that even if you're not interested in going to host, you can donate like money or plane tickets to help them out. And we have a Red Rifle cattle farm. Red Rifle Cattle Company is what it's called. And 25% of all of our merch sales goes to we just rotate between different organizations that help veterans through this, like Hooves or the 22-0 or whatever it might be. So
right on.
We do try to encourage people to buy that, and then we just send checks out to those people. So something to think about.
No, that's great, Tim. That's great. I appreciate that. And man, another thing I learned about you today that I didn't know. So that's worth the price of admission. So we're coming up on our hour, my friend. So it goes fast, doesn't it? I mean, it
does. It does.
Fast. It's really fun talking to you. I'm glad we were able to have you on again. Is there anything that you wanted to say that we didn't cover during our time together today?
So my parting words would be just around there's a shortage of people in the reliability space. We're always looking for great people that want to learn. And I don't mean my company, but in general. So if this really interests you and you're not in the reliability wheelhouse or world just yet, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. And then the other part I would tell you is to all my brothers and sisters out there, no matter what it is, there is no one event that's greater than the other in our minds. or our bodies or our souls, because we've all received it at some point or the other that has impacted us one way or the other. We're all as valuable in life as the next. So if you're feeling any kind of inclination or want some help, please talk to somebody. Even you too can ping me on LinkedIn and I will reach right out.
Right on. And I think that's heartfelt, and then that's appreciated, Tim. Without doubt, I think everybody who well, certainly you and I are ready, willing, and able. I went through some of the Safe Talk training recently. Great organization, not only for trying to help people, but also to understand yourself a little bit better, and that may be a non-threatening, non-admitting, hey, maybe I know I have something, or maybe I don't. Go through that type of training, and it helps to understand yourself. But we're all ready to go. And if you ever want to talk to the guys at 22-0, my friend, I can hook you up, brother. Hook me up.
I just we've one is one too many, and I've lost more than one too many. So it is heartfelt when you say that is my life, and these are my people. And
right on. The family, the extended family, the brother in arms, brother and sisters in arms, and there's no replacement for that.
That's right.
And
that's right.
We can't lose anymore. We just can't lose anymore.
Amen.
All right, Tim. Well, I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. Round 2, we're starting off the second season.
All right.
And to help us on this mission, you mentioned that people get a hold of you on LinkedIn. I think that's, still probably, the most viable resource for professional connection. And, don't even think about it. Just if it's there, reach out, right? I'm not getting... The only people that are harassing me on LinkedIn is cold sales calls that don't have anything to do with
That's
what
right.
what I can help people with. I'm like, man, just you're degrading the whole sales profession by targeting me because I don't have any power with it. Anyway, so LinkedIn's good for this type of stuff, though, and really can connect. There's a tremendous amount of good content on LinkedIn too for veterans, so I highly recommend that. So a quick note to listeners that we're seeking both women veterans as well as recently transitioned vets, and also Marines. If you got a Marine that wants to be on the podcast, let me know.
I'll get it for you.
That sounds good. Please keep it coming. And so thank you, Tim, and thank you, Mobius, for providing this platform to help both transitioning vets as well as those looking to hire them in the field of maintenance reliability. That is all for today. Thanks again, Tim.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Mobius. I appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Veterans Connected. We will see you back for another episode very soon. In between, we hope to see you in the Veterans Connected community group, where you can meet Eric and fellow podcast guests and share with other industry veterans at mobiusconnect.com. And we hope to see you there.